What's up, everybody? I'm Coach PJ, and today we're going to go through a topic that is probably one of the most common topics that I've come across in my 10 years being a performance coach. And that topic is sport-specific training. We hear this a lot as performance coaches when an athlete or a parent or a coach comes to us and they say, I need you to train this kid, and his training needs to be specific to baseball or tennis, whatever it is. A lot of these parents, coaches, and athletes are very misguided on what sport-specific training actually is and what it is not. So the purpose of this video is to really explain to you what is sport-specific training and what sport-specific training is not, and where these misguided people are kind of stuck and lost, so that we can put you on the right track so that you can get the best training program for you in your sport or for your son or daughter. So to start off, simply put, sport-specific training, the only thing that's sport-specific is playing the actual sport. That's the only thing that's actually going to improve performance in the specific adaptations that are necessary for your sport. However, anything else that we do, there's plenty of other training that we can do. Anything else is general or specific exercises that are geared towards building fitness or strength or other athletic abilities or performance qualities, and then the hope is that will then transfer into our sport. And there's very specific ways of doing that. So first, before we get into that, let's go through what sport-specific training and what specificity is not. Specificity, number one, specificity is not mimicking sport movements in the weight room. This is very common. You see this a lot at the Globo gyms and those type of places where athletes are in there and they're trying to make up whatever they think they know what they're doing. You see this in Rocky when he's got 50-pound dumbbells and he's throwing uppercuts. This is something that 10, 15 years ago, performance coaches and trainers just thought it made sense. There was not actually any science behind it yet at the time, and we as performance coaches thought that, hey, if I just add some resistance to whatever movement you're going to do in your sport, then when you get to your sport, you'll be able to do it faster or harder or for longer. So that's when weighted footballs came into play, or adding a cable resistance to a punch, or swinging a weighted baseball bat. And all that stuff seemed great until the science started to catch up with it. And then what we saw, and this has been proven endlessly over and over through research, if you're a science nerd and you want to see some of the research, shoot me an email or contact me at the bottom of this video, and I'd be happy to share some of the research studies with you. But what we've seen through research over time is adding resistance to those movements is actually going to be detrimental to your performance, and through a number of ways. Number one, as we add resistance to these sport-specific movements, particularly movements that need to happen in your sport rapidly, these sports rely on your muscles' ability to apply force really, really fast. So as soon as we start to add resistance to those things and we slow those movements down, we're now training the body to perform those movements slower. So we swing the baseball bat slower, we throw a slower fastball. Obviously, if we're trying to improve speed and performance and power, and we start doing the things slower, it's going to be counterproductive for my performance. Number two, as we add resistance, the resistance becomes so much that different muscle groups have to take over in order to perform the movement. Therefore, my mechanics start to change. I can't perform the movement with the exact same mechanics I do in my sport, and once those mechanics start to change, those new mechanics that I've now learned in the weight room by hitting a slap shot with my hockey stick taped to a cable column is actually going to transfer onto the ice. And then when I get out there and I try to hit my slap shot, my mechanics are going to be all screwed up. And I'm not going to be able to aim my shot, and it's all going to go downhill from there. So we don't want to add resistance to those movements and then change the mechanics that are necessary for me to perform those movements at the highest efficiency and accuracy in my sport. The last one is, as we add resistance to those movements and different muscle groups have to take over, my chances of injury are going to go through the roof. And we've seen this with high school kids trying to throw weighted footballs up over the goalpost. And the thought was, if I can throw a 5-pound football or a 2-pound football up over the goalpost 100 times, then when I have to throw this little football, I'm going to be able to launch it 100 yards. in reality, the athlete's rotator cuff is not set up to be able to handle throwing a 2-pound football over and over, and those things start to break down. We see torn labrums and rotator cuffs and all these kind of debilitating injuries that would have never happened because we started to add movement, or we started to add resistance to these sport-specific movements. So mimicking sport movements in the weight room, you're just setting yourself up for injury. You're going to slow the movements down and change the mechanics. So all of these things are actually going to decrease your performance. So if you're working with a trainer and you start mimicking all these sport movements and trying to throw punches with a heavy weight or swing a heavy bat, added resistance to it, time to change up your training program and your trainer. Number 2, adding sport implements or equipment into exercises to mimic the actions of the sport. Again, this is a gimmick that's used by trainers and coaches and people who are uneducated or ignorant on what specificity actually is. Therefore, they're just going to do a bunch of stuff. They're going to throw a lacrosse stick in your hand, and then you're going to think that that's specific for lacrosse, and therefore it's going to translate into my lacrosse performance. Absolutely no research behind this at all. This is an entertainment type of trick that I'm using to guesstimate that maybe if this looks kind of like lacrosse, that you're going to buy into it. And hopefully if we do a bunch of stuff and you have a lacrosse stick in your hand, then maybe you'll be better at lacrosse, and then people think that I know what I'm doing. Again, there's no science to back this. This is a gimmick, and it's used by people who don't understand what specificity actually is and how to transfer training onto the sport field. So they just do some agility ladders or cone drills or drills themselves that probably won't translate much to the field, and then they throw a football to you at the end, or you pick up a ground ball, or you play, create a little cross stick, whatever it is, something sport specific, and therefore this is going to transfer to your sport. You see that a lot with sport coaches too, who try to go too far into the strength and conditioning and sports performance realm, and they think, I'll just do a bunch of stuff that I've seen some trainers do and throw some sports equipment like a tennis racket in there, and this is going to make you a better tennis player. It couldn't be more off. Again, just a gimmick. Avoid that kind of stuff because there's no science behind it, and it's not going to make you a better tennis